Assalamualaikum. Oshirma, gapirib turma. Tez bilan ko'ch, tez bilan ko'ch.
Tez bilan işte. Ha, neyse.
Tez bilan ko'ch. Siz gapirmang.
Сейчас. Слышно нас?
Ага.
Может, не слышно. Надо...
Может быть слышно, потому что уже нету этого.
Да, да. Ну, сперва должны мы их слышать, после этого они будут нас слышать.
Also unsere Wissenschaft ist ganz speziell sowas. Jetzt Cross-Country, das ist schon mal Zeit.
No one is coming here, yeah?
Ja, genau.
Was, Georg? Let's ask Julia. Let's ask people to bring me just something to show to minister the interest. Давай попросим Глорию согнать сюда народ, чтобы наши увидели. Много у нас интересов. Здесь. Точно.
Also, gut gegessen.
Ja, wir haben Schaschlik. Schaschlik.
Ich bin das Baker. Gab es noch irgendwas Überraschendes heute?
Also wir haben über eine Stunde überzogen. Ein paar Herren mussten halt ein bisschen länger sprechen als vorgesehen. Hatten halt viel zu erzählen.
Naja, wir sehen es morgen früh noch bei mir im Büro.
Ja. Morgen 10 haben wir einen Termin. Ne?
Ja,
genau.
Morgen beginnt das auch offiziell. Keine Ahnung, was das ist. Und dann gibt es heute die erste Karte. Also da kann ich durchaus sagen, wir sind ja hier.
Сам баландroq gapirish kerak, gромче, ovozingiz pastroq.
Peter, ich brauche mein USB nicht mehr. Jetzt müssten noch ein paar Leute hier reinkommen. Jetzt müssten noch ein paar Leute hier reinkommen, dass es nicht gar so leer ausschaut hier. Ne? Für die Cooler ein bisschen kommen.
Es gibt als erstes hier eine Gutschriftszeremonie.
Die gab es schon.
Deutlich früher, oder? Ja, Austausch. Das war's. Irgendwie haben wir unterschrieben, 14:30 gibt es auch. Dafür, dass es so chaotisch ist, klappt hier so viel, das ist unglaublich.
Das findet sich sehr anstrengend. Jetzt auch das Treffen, weil das verzögert sich jetzt mal eine Stunde. Die deutsche Seite sitzt da und wartet. Kein Problem, dann machen wir es eine Stunde später. Die sitzt doch da.
Я в Узаке. Я штреляю, я в Узаке, нормально.
Ja, ich habe gerade erstmal die Klimaanlage angeschaut. Das war 27, als wir hier reinkamen.
Oh gut, das ist gut, das macht Spaß. Да, 20 schon, да. Заморозки немножко побыстрее. Wenn es kühler ist, dann reden die Leute schneller.
Почему вы так говорите?
Schon mal wie?
Gerd?
Also hier ist das.
Smart approach.
Das ist der Drone, so.
Nein,
Wie smart logic.
it is guide and
Ach, der Smart Agriculture. Geht das?
I got it here. The list here
Если нужен наушник, пожалуйста, имеется наушник.
Du brauchst es ja nicht, du hast ja alle beide Sprachen. Okay, спасибо. Family meeting. Спасибо.
Включись, пожалуйста.
How did he
It's done.
Okay. Hello, can you hear us? Okay, great. Yeah, excuse me for the delay, but we are still waiting for the Vice Minister.
Yes, the Vice Minister is coming.
Он как носит всех.
Конечно,
Я
это
вас
важно.
вижу.
Я
Кто спрашивает?
вас видел.
Вас не видела.
Не заняли.
Ну, такое.
Английский, русский, узбекский.
Okay, I think we can start.
We can start.
Yes, thank you for your patience and excuse me, please for the delay.
Alles klar, na dann muss man einsteigen.
Okay. At first, this information that you have on the lower bar, different language channels, so you can choose your language. And I would like to continue in Russian now. Okay. Is it working? Okay. Уважаемая Шахло Уткуровна, замминистра Министерства инновационного развития Узбекистана, уважаемый Камалетдин Абатбаевич, заместитель директора ИКАС, инновационный центр Арадского моря, уважаемый господин Хайнц, уважаемая госпожа Штяпин, Министерство образования и науки Германии, уважаемый господин Пипа, тоже представитель Министерства образования и науки Германии, уважаемые участники проектов, спикеры и гости. Добро пожаловать на международную конференцию, посвященную на превращению региона Приаралья в зону экологических инноваций и технологий. Я очень рад вас приветствовать в Министерстве инновационного развития в Ташкенте. И я хотел бы поблагодарить Министерство за подготовку такой интересной конференции и за возможность проводить одну сессию в рамках такой конференции. Тема нашей сессии сегодня – управление природными ресурсами в условиях изменения климата. Так, вначале все с моей стороны. Я сегодня буду ваш модератор и хотел бы передать слово госпоже Вера Штякин.
Yes, good morning, dear ladies. Oh, good afternoon. I'm sorry, dear ladies and gentlemen. I speak in English, if that's okay. Good. A very warm welcome on behalf of the Federal Ministry of Education and Research, the BMBF in Germany, to this session, Natural Resource Management under Climate Change, Current Challenges and Future Perspectives, which is part of the conference Transformation of the Aral Sea Region in a Zone of Environmental Innovations and Technologies. I'm very pleased that we have come together in this hybrid conference, and I'd like to express my gratitude to CASIB for organizing this session. I thank you, Dr. Peter Liebelt, and your colleagues who were involved in the preparation. I highly appreciate too the presentations that will be given in this session, for instance, on research and development projects contributing to solve problems that are linked with climate and environmental challenges in Central Asia and the Aral Sea region. The main part of them belongs to our funding measure, Client 2, International Partnerships of Sustainable Innovations. Yeah, let me briefly introduce myself. You already said my name. Vera Sterken is my name. I'm Deputy Head of the Unit Global Change Climate Research in the BMBF. Climate change is, as the topic of this session, is at the center of my division's activities. We've just learned again from the UNFCCC conference of the parties, the COP26 in Glasgow, that action steps are strongly needed. We are convinced that scientific expertise is of highest relevance to cope with the challenges and risks of climate change, and also the transfer of knowledge and exchange between scientists and practitioners is of crucial importance. This means that not only academic excellence is essential, but also this is true for the practical relevance and communication between scientists and stakeholders. Ladies and gentlemen, let me explain why the Federal Ministry, the BMBF, has initiated a program like CLIENT, which is special in many ways across borders. We can only solve the challenges of our time globally in international collaboration. This very recently became clear, not least by the global pandemic. We know that we also have to find global answers to all our pressing questions. First, climate change, but also the loss of biodiversity, the littering of our oceans, our access to water. All of the environmental damages and catastrophes of the last decades, including the disappearance of the Aral Sea, show how fragile humans are and our planet is. Everybody everywhere has the right to a present and a future worth living in. To this end, the United Nations set 17 Sustainable Development Goals in the 2030 Agenda in 2015. They should enable a decent life worldwide and preserve the natural foundations of life. With its sustainability strategy, the German federal government is committed to these UN goals. Also, for some years now, the young generation, the Fridays for Future movement, has been raising its voice internationally for a future worth living in. With CLIENT 2, we are contributing to all 17 SDGs, from the fight against poverty, hunger, inequality, to climate protection and international partnerships. What role does research play in this? We clearly see the role of research not only as a warning role, we provide new knowledge for the pressing questions of our time, new knowledge of action that is oriented towards social needs and can thus specifically solve local environmental problems. The BMBF therefore launched a specific research strategy called Research for Sustainability, or FONA in short, last year. We are aware that research will have to play an even more direct role in the public debate in the future. You, the researchers, should carry this knowledge into society, into the global community. That is why international research projects and collaborations play a central role in FONA. A main component of this strategy is the program CLIENT 2, International Partnerships for Sustainable Innovations. With CLIENT 2, projects develop prototypic solutions on site together with international partners on 4 continents. We want to mitigate greenhouse gas emissions, enhance energy efficiency, adapt to climate change and natural risks, use resources, water and land sustainably, and reduce environmental pollution. We have now invested 145 million euros in funding. Additional funding resources are contributed by the involved companies and international partners. As a part of this, we have provided more than 17 million euros for research and development projects in Central Asia. For us, CLIENT 2 means partnership at eye level. That's why relevant actors in all participating countries are equal partners. That's why we pay close attention to the local political framework. In this way, we want to generate a regional and trans-regional impact of the funded measures. Against this background, I like to especially call the cooperation between Germany and Central Asian countries a constant driver of numerous successful research and development initiatives. Closing my remarks, I'd like to mention that the success of Client 2 is a reason for us to carry on. We are thinking about a subsequent initiative, but more details can only be given after the new German federal government will have started its work. That means in some weeks, I hope. I wish everybody involved an exciting and successful conference session. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now I would like to hand you over to Shahlo Utkurovna, замминистра Министерства инновационного развития Узбекистана. Пожалуйста.
Спасибо. Уважаемый доктор Питер Лебельд, госпожа Вера Штеркен, господин Хайц. Я кратко хочу сказать, у меня нет специальной речи, но в первую очередь, как хост этой конференции, я хочу сказать большое спасибо и Центральноазиатскому инновационному бюро по устойчивому развитию. Спасибо Федеральному министерству образования и исследований Германии за организацию этой секции, за ту работу, которую вы проводите в Узбекистане. БМБ – давний партнер Узбекистана в области поддержки науки. И сейчас, в последние годы, очень большой прогресс у нас происходит в этом направлении. Во многом благодаря господину Хайнцу, который очень активно работает в нашем министерстве. И мы это чувствуем. И это очень важно для нашего министерства, важно для науки Узбекистана. Вот эта кооперация, которая приходит извне, она очень важна для развития науки. И в том числе, вот сейчас я хотела бы сказать по Аральскому региону, поставлены амбициозные цели. Это превратить этот регион в регион инноваций. И только через инновации мы сможем как-то развить этот регион, привести к правильному природопользованию, пользованию ресурсами этого региона. И в этом большая... я думаю, при привлечении... Вот сегодня был обмен меморандумами. Я поздравляю CASIB с этим событием. И я думаю, будут реализованы очень интересные проекты. И через кооперацию с немецкими учеными придет много инновационных, хороших решений. Я сама человек науки, я профессор биологии, и поэтому я понимаю, насколько важна наука для того, чтобы научная поддержка инновационных проектов, решений. И мы сегодня с коллегами говорили, возможно, не важно, что какие-то solutions, они разработаны конкретно для Аральского региона, они могут быть разработаны вообще для других целей, например, водосбережение, это водосберегающие технологии в пищевой промышленности, они могут быть успешно внедрены в такие же отрасли промышленности Узбекистана. И вот этот трансфер решений, которые были разработаны для других регионов, для схожих ситуаций в регион Аральского моря, он очень важен. И эта программа, она предусматривает это внедрение высокотехнологичных инноваций, экологически чистых, энерго- и водосберегающих технологий, применение зеленой экономики, предотвращение опустынивания, экологической миграции, развитие экотуризма, другие меры, которые направлены на объединение усилий для формирования необходимых условий и стимулов по развитию региона Приоралья. Я думаю, все эти меры, они будут сегодня активно обсуждаться в рамках этой конференции, в рамках этой секции. Я вижу, что будет очень много интересных докладов, с удовольствием мы их послушаем. Кроме этого, я хочу сказать, господин Хайнц, это единственная секция с участием заместителя министра. У нас 4 секции сейчас идет, так как я единственный заместитель министра. Вот в этой секции и я, и наш единственный советник, поэтому я думаю, эта секция пройдет на самом лучшем уровне. Я желаю успехов нам всем в проведении этой секции.
Спасибо большое за приятные слова. Да, как вы сейчас слышали, мы сегодня меморандум подписали между CASIB и Министерством образования. Я хочу благодарить, сказать, что такое сотрудничество между нами очень хорошее, и это как фундамент тоже для нашей совместной программы «Клиент 2». Но самое важное – это сотрудничество. И я думаю, мы здесь найдем очень хорошие условия, которые нам министерство дает, которые Международный центр инноваций в Нукусе нам дает. И я думаю, совместно мы можем здесь реализовать такой очень большой потенциал, улучшить экологические условия, а также развивать тоже экономику. Спасибо большое. Сейчас я хотел бы передать слово господину Идрисову.
Спасибо. Я очень рад приветствовать. Спасибо, господин Хайнс, господин доктор Epithelium. Шаховкин, спасибо большое. Я o'zbekcha hurmatli bugungi konferensiya ishtirokchilari, aziz mehmonlar. Xonimlar va janoblar, bugungi Aralbo'yi ekologik innovatsiya va texnologiya hududi mavzusidagi xalqaro konferensiyada ishtirok etganimdan va sizlarni ko'rib turganimdan g'oyat mamnunman. 2018 yil 16 oktyabrda prezident qarori bilan O'zbekiston Respublikasi prezidentining huzuridagi Aralbo'yi xalqaro innovatsiya markazi tashkil etildi. Markazning tashkil etilishi bu Aralbo'yida ekologik inqiroz oqibatlarini yumshatish masalasiga hukumatimiz tomonidan yuksak darajada e'tibor qaratgandan darak beradi. Markazning asosiy vazifalari Aral dengizi qurgan tubida shug'ullangan yerlarda ekotizim va barqaror turmush darajasini ta'minlash, xalqaro tashkilotlar bilan shug'ullangan hududda turli xil muammolarning yechimlarini va innovatsiyalarni ishlab chiqish va joriy etish bo'yicha hamkorlikni tashkil etish. Sinovlar o'tkazish uchun eksperimental maydonlar yaratish, innovatsion texnologiyalar va yondashuvlarni rivojlantirishdan iborat. Aralbo'yida barqaror rivojlantirish sohasida innovatsiyalar transferini kuchaytirish, tadqiqot tarmoqlarini kengaytirish, shuningdek innovatsion ishlanmalarni va texnologiyani joriy etishdan iboratdir. Jumladan
Где переводчики сидят? Потому что у нас есть узбекский и русский в одном. Не поделили каналы.
Ну-ка, что, включи канал.
Другой канал.
Мы слышим кого-нибудь? Слышим кого-нибудь?
I was trying to see, does it work on the Zoom platform? Maybe I'm trying to log into Zoom to see if I can get a translation, because this one doesn't give me translation.
Right?
I was wondering whether it might work on Zoom, because this doesn't give it. Okay. So I'm trying to find it on
He
Zoom.
picks up another signal.
Yeah, no,
Okay. This is it's getting some signal. Откуда это?
Ну вот этот первый канал идет мы.
there's no.
Переводчики, вы нас слышите? А там есть?
I think online it's translated, but we don't get it.
Переводчики?
Bekommen Sie in Deutschland Verstärken? Bekommen Sie die Übersetzung? Okay.
Ja. Yes. Да.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Болды, yakınlaşıp oldu. jumladan Germaniyaning ta'lim va ilmiy tadqiqot bo'yicha federal vazirligiga qarashli CASIB markazida innovatsiyalarni rivojlantirish byurosi bilan hamkorlikda aloqalarni o'rnatganmiz. Klient va dasturiga markaz tomonidan qator istiqbolli loyihalar taqdim etildi. Biz kelgusi yilda hamkorlikda to'qimachilikda qo'llaniladigan Apoxinum venetum o'simligi O'zbekiston hududida yetishishning istiqbollari va o'rganish va uni yetishtirish yo'lga qo'yish bo'yicha qo'shimcha loyiha amalga oshirish maqsad qilib qo'yganmiz. Biz o'ylaymiz, ushbu loyihani amalga oshirish to'qimachilik san'ati va davlatimiz iqtisodiyotining rivojlanishiga munosib hissa bo'lib qo'shadi. Hamkorlik uchun CASIB ma'muriyati va janob doktor Epitheliumga markaz tomonidan ulkan minnatdorchilik bildiramiz. Men o'ylaymanki, bugungi bo'lib o'tayotgan Xaroboy ekologik innovatsiyalar va texnologiyalar hududi mavzusidagi xalqaro konferensiya barchamizni bitta maqsad yo'lida birlashtiradi. Qolaversa, Orolbo'yida iqlim o'zgarishi sharoitida tabiiy resurslarni boshqarishga hozirgi muammolar va istiqbollar masalasi o'z munosib yechimlarini topadi. Binobarin, Orolbo'yi hududini ekologik innovatsiyalar va texnologiyalar zonasi aylantirish uchun yuqori ekologik innovatsiyalar va texnologiya bo'lgan talab uchun zarur shart-sharoitlar va rag'batlarni yaratish zarurligini hisobga olib, barchangizni hamkorlikka chaqirib qolamiz. E'tiborlar uchun rahmat.
Так, мы хотели бы, пожалуйста, передать слово сейчас господину Пиперу от Министерства образования и науки Германии. Пожалуйста.
So, hello everybody, can you hear me?
Yes.
That's great. I was just wondering, I prepared some slides. Is it possible to share these slides, or is it will it not work? And shall I do it, or is it someone else who's doing it?
Not yet.
I think you can share.
It doesn't allow me to share my desk. So you have to do it from your side, actually.
The administrator has to give permission.
Give him permission, that's the easiest. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Разрешите ему разделить экран.
Демонстрация экрана нажмешь?
Oliver Pieper.
Вот это третий. Нет. Вот здесь.
If it's not working, I can do it without, as you wish.
It should work now.
Okay, I can see something. Thank you. Now I have to find it. And
Here we go.
can you see something?
Yeah.
Great. So, okay, first thing solved. Yeah. Good afternoon, everybody. Or in Germany, it's yeah. You can still say good morning. Thanks a lot for having me in this. At this conference, and my name, as you already heard, is Oliver Pieper. I'm working at the Federal Ministry of Education and Research in BMBF, and I'm happy to be here today. It's an honor for me, and I would like to use the following minutes to introduce you our bilateral German Uzbek research funding scheme. And before I do so, I want to give you some and also thank you to Mrs. Stärken again, who already introduced BMBF quite broadly. I want just to add one other slide that underlines the importance of research and education for the German federal government. And what you can see here is our is the development of our budget that we have throughout the last 8 years. And as you can see, the budget of BMBF is constantly increasing and has reached now in 2020 a number of 18.3 billion euros per year for education and research. And this really underlines the priority of this subject for our government. And also, Mrs. Stärken mentioned, we recently had elections here, and we will shortly have a new government starting its work. And we don't know all the details by now, but what I can really assure you is that also the new government sets a huge priority on education research. So we believe that this graph that you can see here will develop even further. And we will get even more budget. And the important part of BMBF is the internationalization of education, science, and research. And therefore, we have a strategy for that that has been developed some years ago. And in the key of this strategy, there are 5 objectives that you can see here on this slide. And these objectives are strengthening the excellence through global cooperation, because we believe that it's very important to exchange on a global level with all the experts around the world. That is not only strengthening our own excellence and our own knowledge, but also will help the others to strengthen their knowledge. And so we believe only together we can solve the existing global challenges, that we can tackle them. The second one is developing Germany's strengths in innovation on the international stage. As you might know, Germany is a country that is very dependent on innovation. We need innovation because we have our economy is quite export oriented. We have a huge number of small and medium-sized companies in Germany, and all these they need innovations every day to compete with the international market. And so for us, it's quite important to strengthen this, and we do this by strengthening, or by also working together with our international partners. Another important objective is the internationalization of vocational training and qualification, because also we believe that we need equal standards around the world in what belongs to vocational training, in order to lay the foundation for tomorrow's skilled workers around the world. And the fourth and also quite important objective is the working together with emerging and developing countries to shape the global knowledge-based society. And because we believe it's the best thing to strengthen countries' economy is to develop knowledge, is to develop innovations from this knowledge, and that is the key factor for more prosperity, for well-being, and also for the last objectives that you can see here. And in my point of view, it's the biggest one, to overcome the global challenges together. Because what we believe is we can only overcome global challenges like climate change, like pandemics, like the current one, if we work together internationally. Because, yeah, as you know, we only have this one world, and we need to keep it and save it together. For what belongs to cooperations of BMBF with international partners, we developed a whole set of different collaboration instruments that you can see here in this diagram. And of course, the level of cooperation differs and can start from the bottom, from what we think is the most important thing to do and thing to start is the exchange of information. That means you have communication channels with other countries. You talk to each other about problems, about informations. And for us, is the most important thing that we have these channels to other countries like Uzbekistan, and to frequently share our knowledge and information. That is a very important point of science diplomacy and of working together. If you go up in the level of cooperation, the next step would be the exchange of scientific stuff. And we do this also with Uzbekistan, for instance. We have scientific exchange programs where scientists from Uzbekistan come to Germany to work here at German science institutions, or also vice versa, that we send scientists to Uzbekistan to work there at the universities, at the scientific centers, and to exchange their knowledge and increase cooperation in that way. The next step, if you go even further, is to initiate cooperation projects, and that is what we also do with Uzbekistan. That means you have selected topics and selected areas where you work together, and you have institutions, you have even companies from both countries that work together on these projects and bring together. They are brought together to work on certain subjects in order to create innovations in the end, and in the long-term perspective to strengthen economy and also to strengthen the science and technology in both countries. If you go even further up the step, you see it can be even more close if you have institutional cooperations that are mostly long-lasting cooperations on an institutional level, and it ends up in something that is a strategic partnership. If you are really close working together at a certain topic with a certain treaty below, and a certain strategy that is underlined. For instance, we have in the European Union between our countries these strategic partnerships. That is the closest, or the top of the pyramid here. And as you can see, it's a whole variety of instruments, and we are really happy that also we, BMBF side and Uzbekistan, have used some of these instruments. And the latest one I will introduce you now. That is our bilateral research funding scheme that we introduced recently. And to let you know, Uzbekistan and Germany, we have a quite long-lasting history of good cooperation in science and technology, and that already exists since the 80s. And just recently, in January 2019, our German Federal Ministry of Education and Research and the Ministry of Innovative Development in Uzbekistan signed another MOU, a Memorandum of Understanding, for partnership and innovation. And one part of this MOU is a joint funding of scientific and technological projects. And so we came together, our colleagues from the MINO, from the Ministry of Innovation and Development at us, and we set up this bilateral research funding scheme. It was published in the mid of 2020, and we together identified 5 thematic priorities that also really quite nicely fit in this conference about the RLC region. And the topics were sustainable urban and rural development, climate and environmental sciences, sustainable agriculture, new material and cultural heritage preservation, and secure, clean and efficient energy. And the idea is, or the focus in general, is on the international networking in these particular priority areas, the preparation of follow-up activities. And follow-up activities can be further projects, can be some more developments towards innovative products or whatever. So that is a big part in that. Then also very important is the promotion of young scientists, and of course the capacity building of the scientific partners in Uzbekistan. So with this in mind, we had our research funding scheme working. And I will just give you now, with this last slide, an overview where we are now and what will be the next steps. So far, applications have handed in on both sides, in Germany and Uzbekistan. It is important to mention that it is cooperation on eye level. That means from German side, we pay the German partners, and the Uzbekian side will pay the Uzbekian, or fund the Uzbekian partners, the Uzbek partners, and to have this project working. We did from the German side an evaluation of the applications. We had for each project 2 independent anonymous evaluators, And on the other side, on the Uzbek side, there's also an evaluation was happening. And after that, we made a funding decision. We're quite happy to have these funding decisions bilaterally by both ministries. And in the end, we selected 10 funding projects that will be funded, that are still currently under approval, so they will start in the future. But for us, very important to show how successful this funding scheme was, is that there was a really great interest and high participation. We had more than 60 competition entries, and we had to select out of these 60. We had to select the 10 best ones for this as the winners of this competition. And just to give you an insight, what we have selected topic-wise, it's a broad variety of topics ranging from sustainable groundwater management towards sustainable restoration methods for monuments. So it's a real broad area of interest that we address here. And so the next step will be looking very much forward that these projects will start in the near future. As I introduced in the beginning, we have to set a new government, and we also have to deal with COVID and so on. But we really believe that we will start these projects quite soon. And we would be very happy, for instance, at the next conference to present you maybe the first results of these projects. So far, that's for me everything today. I had more slides, but I think I'm quite over time. So I go here and say thank you very much for your attention. And yeah, thank you for having me.
Thank you very much, Mr. Pieper, for this nice presentation. Спасибо большое, Mr. Pieper, за интересную презентацию. Переключите, пожалуйста, на вторую презентацию сейчас. У вас есть. Нет, это пятая.
Not the fastest computer. Yeah. And sharing is very
Да, уважаемые дамы и господа, сейчас я хотел бы 10 минут поговорить о значении международного сотрудничества для достижения новых инноваций. Мы уже с 9 утра здесь сидим, это большая конференция, и слушали часто такое слово «сотрудничество». Это как ключевое слово, и в принципе во всех проектах это так, что это как фундамент. Если сотрудничество не работает, проекты сложно реализовать. И поэтому я хотел бы именно об этом сегодня пару слов сказать вам. Следующий слайд, пожалуйста. Да, это вы видите сейчас тему доклада, и я сейчас здесь выбрал все ключевые слова. Это сотрудничество, это прикладные проектные деятельности, внедрение и, в конце концов, зеленые инновации. Зеленые инновации – это наша цель. Мы постараемся туда идти, но самые важные ключевые пункты, чтобы это достигать, это сотрудничество, это совместные научные исследовательские деятельности и внедрение. Так, сейчас дальше, пожалуйста. Вначале зеленые инновации. У нас есть программа финансирования «Клиент 2». Это финансируется Министерством образования и науки Германии. Проектный офис CASIB поддерживает такие проекты из Центральной Азии, поддерживает реализацию проектов в Центральной Азии. Да, 12 проектов сейчас здесь есть, они по темам, можно сказать, экология, энергия, климат. Ja, это key topics, как вы здесь видите. Главная цель – это улучшить экологические условия, а также стимулировать экономику, развивать экономику с нашими проектами. Может быть. Сейчас вы видите, какие проекты в Узбекистане есть в рамках «Клиент 2». Проект «Трансфонд» уже закончится, но у нас сейчас актуально, сейчас 3 проекта есть в настоящее время. И 2 проекта есть именно в области, можно сказать, сельского хозяйства, управления земельными ресурсами. Это проект Kendir-Text, здесь называется Apoxinum Text в Узбекистане. Они занимаются этим, как сказать, найти новые растения как альтернатив хлопку, да, чтобы производить волокну. Да? Значит, они хотят текстильные растения выращивать, которые меньше воды употребляют. И проект «Климатец» занимается этим, как можно застраховать здесь фермеров от климатических рисков. Да, как все знают, у нас есть такая проблема, что нехватка влаги, и такая большая тема, и в рамках этой проблемы такие 2 проекты работают. Так, значит, как вы сейчас видели, больше всего проектов в области климата и землепользования. Это объяснение. Здесь есть такие проблемы, как нехватка влаги, почвенная эрозия, потеря плодородности. Да. И поэтому именно в таких областях есть большой спрос для новых инноваций. Да? Значит, здесь есть такой спрос, и что такой спрос есть, это тоже показывает, например, что ООН объявил регион Приоралья, да, регион для экологических инноваций и технологий. И тоже показывает, что, например, здесь был создан несколько лет назад инновационный центр в Нукусе. Это все показывает здесь, что есть такой большой спрос есть для новых инноваций. Дальше. Сейчас я вам немного покажу, какие инновативные результаты у нас есть, например, в наших проектах «Клиент 2». Это по теме, как можно, что можно делать, чтобы почва больше влаги может удерживать. По этой теме, например, работает такой проект REX. Они изучают и разрабатывают новые технологии для обработки почвы, например. И цель, что почва может больше влаги держать, да, и потеряет меньше влаги. Также есть, например, проект CASIB и Apoxinum текст. Там тоже такая тема использовать водные ресурсы более эффективно. Следующий пункт – потеря или почвенная эрозия. И да, по этой теме, например, тоже работает проект REX. Да? Тоже они с помощью новых технологий постараются, например, культивировать почву в таком виде, что здесь меньше риска эрозии будет. Также, может быть, интересно, есть, например, такая идея в проекте REX, создавать сеть компетенций. Да? Значит, мы постараемся, мы развиваем новые идеи, технологии, знания, и мы хотим, у нас есть интерес здесь надолго работать, и это внедрить надолго. Поэтому такая идея, например, создавать центры компетенций для защиты почв. Да? Да, можете дальше идти. И это все только работает, если вы совместно работаете. Да? Например, исследование, прикладное исследование только работает, когда мы вместе работаем. Я во всех проектах тоже участвую, часто в гостях, и я это вижу, что проект только успешный, если люди совместно работают. Нам надо понимать, какой спрос здесь есть. Здесь местные люди, у них есть другие подходы, у них есть другие знания, очень такие региональные знания, они знают их регион очень хорошо. Но с нашей стороны, конечно, тоже интересный инпут есть. У нас есть, конечно, тоже совсем другие подходы, может быть. У нас есть другие технологии. И если мы это соединяем, мы можем успешно исследование и заниматься разработкой новых технологий. Тема внедрения, для этого, конечно, тоже очень важно хорошее сотрудничество. Без этого это не работает, потому что это очень важно, что люди узнают, чем мы занимаемся, да, как наши новые технологии работают, что они узнают о результатах наших проектов. И только когда они доверяют, когда они это понимают, чем мы занимаемся, они начинают это, может быть, внедрить и использовать. Поэтому это очень важно. И в конце концов, если это успешно, у нас есть Green Innovations, надо объяснить у нас научные результаты, новые технологии, но это еще не инновации. Инновации это только в таком случае, когда мы такие новые результаты хорошо внедряем в практику и в рынок и реализуем. Да? Поэтому все должно быть совместно работать, и чтобы проекты успешные были. У нас недавно была конференция по программе «Клиент 2», и тоже хотел вам показать, что там тоже часто речь шла об этом. Они спросили, что самые важные пункты или факторы для успеха. И здесь вы тоже видите, какое большое значение имеет сотрудничество. Хотел вам этим показывать. Да, я хотел еще раз повторить, что у нас есть очень хорошие партнеры с министерством, с инновационным центром развития инноваций в Нукусе. И думаю, здесь да, у нас очень хороший фундамент, и здесь есть, да, как я это вижу, большой потенциал для дальнейшего сотрудничества, для реализации дальнейших проектов. И для этого мы очень стараемся, и знак этого это тоже наш меморандум, который мы сегодня подключили. Да, это наши контактные данные. Наш проектный офис CASIB находится в городе Алматы. Но есть, конечно, тоже идеи это дальше расширять и именно в Узбекистане быть еще более активно. Спасибо. Сейчас хотел бы слово передать господину Князеву.
Нет, я не сама. Я да. После демонстрации экрана. Может, на английском у нас? На немецком?
Du bist? Du bist Kaiser?
Зачем?
I can't see.
Зачем вы его организаторы?
Next speaker.
Ich sehe ihn nicht.
He's
I
not
don't see
here.
him.
He's not here.
Okay, Gerd Schmidt.
He just sent an email explaining that he couldn't find the right link. Maybe we skip and take him later on.
Yeah, just continue.
Okay, хорошо, тогда
Организаторы ставят. Просто дайте ему расшарить демонстрацию экрана.
тогда сейчас
Его нету.
да, его не
А его нет, он придет позже. Может быть.
Тогда я сейчас хотел бы слово передать профессору Christopheru Konradu und Professor Universität имени Martina Luthera Halle der Cafedra Geoökologie.
Hello, everybody. Hello in Tashkent. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you see my slides?
Yes.
Okay, then I start. And first of all, I would like to thank you to give us the opportunity and give me the opportunity to present work what we conducted in the framework of the German Water Initiative in the Berlin process, and what we do now in Green Central Asia, which is a new initiative from Germany. And I'm very happy that you give us a chance to present here in the session of CASIB and the initiatives and the program of our Ministry for Research and Education. I would like to talk about digitalization as innovation for improved water distribution and drought management in the Aral Sea Basin. The Green Central Asia initiative is established in 2020 and runs to 2024. It is to develop a political dialogue and to create better access to information and scientific data, and to enable countries to assess the impact of climate change more accurately than they do now, and to develop preventive measures. And the target group are all foreign ministries and the respective institution for climate, environmental resources, education and research, and of course, innovation. This is strongly linked. The target countries are all 5 Central Asian countries and Afghanistan. Here you can see on the right side a picture of the assignment of this common contract in 2020. Digitalization in agriculture. For this purpose, we, in our department at the Martin Luther University of Halle-Wittenberg, together with our partners at the University of Würzburg and the company Greenspin, and especially with our regional partner, which is the Scientific Information Center of the Interstate Commission on Water Coordination in Central Asia. We developed the WMOCA tool, which is an online tool for assessing water use efficiency in the Aral Sea Basin. It is based on remote sensing technology, that means satellite images, combined with climate and socioeconomic data. It is a regional database of indicators useful for 2 purposes. And these 2 purposes I would like to show you and share with you now. In the end, it is a strategic decision support tool for identifying irrigated areas of the Aral Sea Basin with need for action in water management, but also in land management. And it is important that it enables user interaction and ensures data security. These are two things which were very important for our team. You can find the tool online on a server in Tashkent under www.vumoca.net, and you can see our online materials. This is dissemination of knowledge and also a little bit technology on our YouTube channel in Sava Green, which is a part of this Green Central Asia initiative today. Two examples how you can use Vumoca. On the left side, you see a picture of the Amu Darya Delta, where you also find the Center for Innovation in Nukos here, and yeah, it's located here. And you can see the situation of land use intensity in the year 2008, in contrast to what is given as an amount of water, because 2008 it was a drought year in the region. And when you look at the land which is not used, then you can identify dark cells where you have not very much water, where the irrigated areas are not intensively used, and especially in Karakal, Pakistan, this is the case, and areas like in Khorasan where you have more irrigation water available. The situation changes in 2010, which is a water-rich year. And in the water-rich year, you can see that even in Karakal, Pakistan, the land use is more intensive than in a drought year. This tool allows you to distinguish between areas that are sensitive to climate change and water scarcity, and maybe also to land abandonment, and distinguish them from others. And for decision-making, Vumoca enables to decide about unproductive land. For instance, to identify areas useful for planting alternative crops, for implement soil melioration, and where to invest into irrigation and drainage infrastructure. And it can be seen as a tool for the prevention of labor migration. Another use is the water distribution. So I showed the one purpose, as I promised before, land. Now we come to the water sector, and we see here the districts of Uzbekistan and the available water in the dark blue bars, and the water use efficiency, irrigation efficiency in these bright blue bars. And you can see and analyze with the help of our tool the differences. And about the water use efficiency. And thus, Vumoca enables decision makers to reorganize water distribution at the regional scale. This you can have as a tabular data, as a graph, or as a map. So water and land. This tool is at the moment ready to use until 2018. We are currently upgrading it for a new version, and try to find ways to improve the scales and make it from a regional scale, bring it from a regional scale to the local scale as well. For instance, we are looking for the opportunity to implement Vumoca Zoom and utilize innovation like Google Earth Engine apps or other free of source satellite data apps to derive local indicators. Here you can see the area around Nukos. And we want to develop digital education modules for using it, knowledge and technological transfer, and of course, assessment of adoption factors of digital innovations in land of water management. We want to do that we can see who can use this innovation and how. And we also try to use the data more innovatively and detect, for instance, the dynamics of salt crusts in the area, which is an important measure to see the land status in the irrigation systems. And we also submitted a proposal, and I hope that in the next time we get a better chance for our Digi for Water that exactly address this innovation in Uzbekistan. But I think that we will find, I'm confident that we will find a way how we can cooperate and bring this technology there. In our Green Central Asia initiative, we work on drought detection and monitoring at the moment. Here we also use satellite technology, for instance, to evaporative stress index to see water shortage, drought. The second indicator is to the vegetation index, which shows us the vegetation development and so an impact of droughts. And this is combined in a new system, which we want to present in the beginning of next year on drought detection and impact assessment, which is again online and which should help to get an overview on the drought situation. It shows indicators on water situation and vegetation, analysis of own areas of interest, export, and what is most important for users is the bulletin. You can select an area, an oblast, an rayon, and then you can order a bulletin, which will be sent via email. This is what we are doing at the moment, and this brings me to my conclusion. I think that remote sensing can derive core information services that in turn can contribute to digitalization in irrigation agriculture in Uzbekistan and Central Asia. Yeah, it allows to discuss water allocation between the countries and also national water distribution. It helps to allocate land more efficiently, and the communication between land and water sectors is strengthened. The outcome would be increased irrigation efficiency, management of droughts, and the conservation of wetlands by water saving and biodiversity. And I think that our satellites from the ESA Copernicus program are very important to support these things, and especially for integrative planning of rural development and cross-sectoral management of natural resources in your countries. Let me conclude some recommendations. My suggestion is that it is very important that we together identify pathways to implementation and use of our information, because there we need to cooperation among our stakeholders. I would like to give you the hint on the conference, Silk Road of Knowledge, 26 to 28 of January, where we try from the scientific side this transfer. At this, you will receive more information via Peter Liebel soon. And I think that with the tools, we can contribute to the UN SDG indicator reporting system, especially when you think about the water use efficiency indicator. And I think Uzbekistan can utilize remote sensing in the implementation of national strategies on digitalization, water, biodiversity, and climate change, and maybe others as well. And my second recommendation and final is that it would be good to have a partner network to promote scientific results and to identify opportunities and constraints of digitalization in the agricultural sector of Uzbekistan. Maybe Uzbekistan has it in his hands to link the scientific activities to show, for instance, where are the linkages with the Japanese satraps program, which is a parallel session now. And another suggestion from my side is to identify overlaps to generate synergies, maybe in the instrumentation. Many international projects bring devices to your country, and it would be maybe good if the Hydromet service, for instance, has this information at his hands to coordinate these activities, to coordinate trainings and so on, that things are more consolidated for the future and hence more sustainable. Thank you for your attention. I'm open for questions if allowed. If not, I'm fine. After the session, I'm also ready to discuss with you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Christopher, for this interesting insights from the Zava Green project of the Green Central Asia initiative. You mentioned satraps. You just talked with them, and they're very interested. It's a funding measure between Uzbekistan and Japan, and they're also very interested in talks with you, with all of our projects, because there are potential synergy effects we can use. I think this would be interesting, and I could organize such a meeting maybe in the next days. That would be no problem, I think.
It's a very nice offer. Thank you, Peter.
Okay, now I would like to continue with Lovis Kneisel. I see you. Okay, Lovis?
Yes.
Okay, let's try to share my screen. Here we go. Everything visible? All right, here we go. Okay, Peter, thank you for the invitation to the conference, such as the kind introduction. And please excuse me being late to the presentation slot. I missed a couple of links, but now I think I'll be fine. Maybe Peter mentioned it already. My name is Lovis Kneisel. I'm the director of Sachsenline and the project leader of the Apoxinum text project, on behalf of which I would like to say a couple of words. First of all, maybe a quick introductive words to us at Sachsenline. We have been founded in 1994. And our aim is to develop and promote the cultivation of fiber crops and the processing of extracted fiber. And since Germany's textile industry has changed over the last decade into more sustainable and more technical fields of application for textiles, our focus has shifted as well towards more of the development part of specific products from natural fibers, such as semi-finished product for composites and for technical textile approaches. Along those activities, we have been largely active in the fields of scientific in order to develop certain fiber qualities, fiber crops, and processing technologies. And connected to that, the product-specific value chains that have been established along the way. I think maybe it would be best just to give you an overview of what kind of projects I'm talking about. I would like to give you a quick introduction on those. We have been active in several projects in Central Asia, for example, the CASIB project and the Linocas project, both client 2 projects. In the CASIB project, the aim was to develop textile grade hemp fiber qualities in Kazakhstan, such as specific harvesting technologies to obtaining optimal fiber qualities. The project is still running, and hopefully we will be able to continue our work in the next year. And we have another recently finished project, the Linocas project, that has developed a technical fiber quality from linseed straw, which has been largely underused over the last couple of years. And yeah, there was the aim to create a value to the process and to the fiber qualities developed. The extraction technology was able to produce technical fiber qualities from which a production of non-woven textile fabrics was possible. Just for example, for installation purposes or automotive interior applications. The talks to the project and to the fiber qualities have been going on for the last couple of months, and there have been new customers coming in, especially from the automotive sector, since the fiber prices for textile grade hemp and flax fibers have been going up and down over the last couple of months. And yeah, the linseed fiber qualities from Kazakhstan are quite interesting now for the European market. Another 2 projects I would like to, say a couple of words about is just to give you an overview of what kind of projects we are aiming at in Germany. For example, we have it's called NF Hightech Plus. It was a knowledge and technology transfer program to transfer developed and innovative applications for composites and semi-finished products based on natural fibers into several different applications. And a recently started project called Waste Wool, on the other hand, addresses coarse domestic wool qualities in Germany that are currently largely unused, respectively only used for low-value applications. That specific project aims to create higher volume from sorting existing qualities and building transparent value streams and cost streams for the agricultural sector. This was just to give you an overview on what kind of topics we address at Sachsenline. The purpose today was to talk to you about the Apoxinum former Kentetex project, which has just been started in July 2021. And I would like to talk to you about the generating and the ability of generating potentials due to those Apoxinum text projects. As you see, we have been integrating 3 different countries, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, and Uzbekistan, in the Apoxinum text project. The aim is to develop technologies and processes for the extraction of Apoxinum fibers in textile processable qualities, which means cotton qualities. We will have to establish a textile and process chain for Apoxinum from the cultivation to the end of the products, and the aim is to create potential market access in Central Europe. So you might ask the question, why Apoxinum and what is the aim with Apoxinum? The fiber crop is able to produce growth on sites with limited availability of water and with saline pollution. We were able to prove that in a definition project. Beforehand, we started the Apoxinum text project. Since Apoxinum is a permanent crop, the demand for ground preparation is quite low. Thus, we were able to identify possible quality outcomes from the extracted fiber from Apoxinum, which have been equivalent cotton qualities. So that generally allows us to fall back on existing cotton fabrication technologies and capacities in Central Asia, and especially in Uzbekistan. So how is the Apoxinum text project designed? How have we established our consortium? As you see, in order to create the maximum potential for transferability into practice, our projects are generally, and the Apoxinum text project specifically, commits to the integration of partners from all parts of the process and the value chain. As you see here, we combine agricultural and industrial processing aspects in different value steps by integrating Germany and Central Asian partners as well. As a result, we are able to bring international cooperation into the value streams, and to say they specifically address markets in natural fiber uses and function. To do so, as I said, the aspect of cooperation builds the necessary basis. As you see here, we have several partners integrated from Germany, such as Kazakhstan, such as Uzbekistan and Kyrgyzstan into the project. As you see, right now, I'm not in the position to give you specific scientific results since the project has just started. I just wanted to give you an overview on how we proceed during our project. And at last, I would give you just a quick outlook. Since the project just has started, we will persist at least until the middle of 2024. And as I mentioned, our project generally aims at specific market and creating value with sustainability and natural fibers. To do so, most certainly we rely on international partnerships and cooperative collaboration. And therefore, the client framework is able to provide a valuable basis to establish such cooperations, and in order to develop new ideas together and create innovative approaches and steady good results for fruitful cooperations. I'm very thankful to be part of the Client2 family. Most important is to know from my hand of view, the needs and the ways of working and the strengths and challenges of our partners, and to create an open cooperation with all of you. And therefore, I would like to warmly invite you to discuss new thematic approaches for the joint development and value creation potentials and further talks and implement them into concrete projects. My colleague, Mr. Brückner and Mr. Antonov, are currently on their way to Tashkent and are open for content-based discussions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Lovis, for this interesting presentation. Now I would like to move on to the REX project. Professor Guggenberger, please.
The second presentation, please. Yeah, Peter, thank you very much, and thank you very much for the Ministry of Innovative Development here in Uzbekistan for inviting me to talk a little bit about soils. Actually, when being in Central Asia, everybody thinks of water shortage, water distribution, but there's another medium which is also very relevant. This is soils, and please let me now talk a little bit about some ideas of getting actually better information on the status of our soils and on how soils can serve the societies. Please press okay, next slide, please. Yep, well, if we look to the soil functions, then it's clear that there is no life on Earth without soils. For example, if we would have not the CO2 uptake by soil weathering and formation of organic matter, we would have an atmosphere like on Venus now, with 200-300 degrees. And 90% of the food is produced from soils. Soil biodiversity, or soil hosts the most biodiversity on Earth. And also many pharmaceuticals and active materials are established from soil. So these are just a few functions that soil deliver to the society. Slide, please. But at the other hand, we are not treating our soils well. So on the top left, you see erosion, but this is not erosion in Central Asia. This is erosion in northern Germany in dry years. And what you can see, these are the potatoes, and the soil is simply removed. But of course, we have also carbon fertility losses with agriculture. And agriculture is also very relevant when it comes to biodiversity losses. We contaminate our soils on the whole Earth. And particularly also here in Central Asia, we have huge problems with salinization. In our REX project, slide, we are dealing with carbon losses, with erosion, and biodiversity loss. Next slide, please. And I will simply provide a summary of that. Please. So what we learned in collaboration with our Kazakh partners, so this was a project, or still is a project, dealing with northern Kazakhstan and southwestern Siberia. It's absolutely important to avoid the bare fallow. And this can be established with direct seeding or minimum tillage techniques. This saves water, interestingly. And what we also need to do, not only in Germany, but also in Siberia, Kazakhstan, Central Asia, to diversify the culture in order to reduce the risk of weather extreme. And no, back, what are you doing? No, leadership. Okay. And with a diversified culture, you also reduce the weed, stress by weed. And with these techniques, it's actually possible to reduce the investment per hectare. So it's also economically feasible. On the one hand, if we identify soils that are degraded too much, they can be set aside. So in northern Kazakhstan, there can be then, for example, step rehabilitation. It can be used for carbon sequestration. If you work with reduced tillage, you save on diesel. And also in the REX and in the preliminary Kolunda project, herbicide sprayer have been developed, which saves the costs for herbicides due to infrared sensoring. And of course, also the optimization is very relevant and also in saving money for fertilizers. But for that, you need to know spatially resolved the characteristics of the soils. And here, unfortunately, NDVI is not enough. Slide, please. What is nowadays very much in development is the use of hyperspectral analysis for spatially resolved analysis of quite a good number of soil parameters. Next slide, and this is based on a remote sensing technique where very many narrow spectral channels are analyzed by mathematical models. But what is essential is to have a very good soil information from conventional analysis so that you can have a calibration. And if you have this, then you can have a very good spatially resolved quantitative soil information. And in this case, of course, there must be also interaction of physicists, of engineers with agronomists and soil scientists in order to come from the data via the analysis to the application. And this hyperspectral analysis, this can be done at all kinds of different scales. It starts with a laboratory, when you have then this calibration with the conventional soil measurements. You can go to proximal sensing, let's say on the go, on the field. You can do this with a quad, for example. But of course, which is very elegant is then when you go to remote sensing via drones to planes, then finally to the satellite. Slide. And here, actually, we are at Leibniz University pretty lucky that that we have now a new professor who is actually located at the German Geoscience Center, but she will be now also, or she is already now also professor at our department, our institute, and she is the PI of the next German satellite, which will be launched, hyperspectral satellite, the NMAP satellite. The launch is scheduled on April 22. And this satellite particularly covers the topics of relevance also here of this conference and also the needs in Central Asia. So core themes are analysis of terrestrial environmental changes, ecosystem responses to human activities, and what is relevant, of course, for us also soil management. Next slide, just to show you some examples of the usefulness of this hyperspectral technique after, as I said, after model development. This is the clay content mapping, and this is actually a very relevant parameter for many soil properties. And this parameter, of course, is set. This is defined by the rocks and by the weathering of the rocks. But then other parameters, they are parameters which are controlled also by management. For example, when it comes to organic carbon mapping on the soil. And this is important when talking about carbon trading. It starts that also such hyperspectral carbon mapping is getting used as a basis for such carbon mapping. It has been shown on German test sites that this works pretty well. Slide. And this works also for soil nutrients and likely or probably also for soil pollutants. I have to emphasize it's not an easy task. It really needs a lot of efforts by physicists, by mathematicians in order to develop the models. But and it must be also done region by region. But once you have them, then you have really a very good tool at hand to characterize the soil. Slide. And it's also relevant with respect to soil water mapping. And for us, this is important when working on rain-fed agriculture, to monitor the soil moisture, to have it spatially resolved. Sledoshi slide. And now I'm coming to the last part of my small lecture. I want to come now to the needs of having a network of soil centers in Central Asian countries. Sledoshi. I think I told, and I hope that I could convince you that it's very important to have a detailed knowledge on the soil quality status, how it's changing with time, but how it's also spatially resolved, because it's a huge heterogeneity in soil parameters. And that's why, with the help of BMBF and Client 2, it was possible to establish already a first of such, let's say, a member of a competence center of labs, of soil labs in Nur Sultan, with the ability to use also modern techniques and modern standards to analyze soil abiotic characteristics, soil nutrients, pollutants, soil organic matter, soil biological parameters. What we don't achieve so far is we don't have mass production of this analysis. For this, you either need a lots of labs, of conventional labs, or you need then to develop, but also with the help of the conventional labs, this hyperspectral models. Sledoshi slide. And this can be done, for example, at high intensity study polygons, representing different agricultural areas, or let's say different regions of Central Asia as such, where some intensive conventional soil analysis can be performed. And such examples are existing in Germany, and nowadays, since a year or so, also in Russia, with the carbon polygons. And it's clear that a huge methodological expertise is necessary, where simply scientists from different fields and also from the different countries have to come together for bringing, for making the whole way from method development, analysis, interpretation, application. Sledoshi slide, please. And targets of such a competence network of soil centers is, of course, the joint education, the joint development of study courses, let's say within Central Asia, or also between Central Asian countries and Germany. Or, for example, there's also a Japanese-German study course in Hanover, which is also open for students from Uzbekistan, from Kazakhstan, for example. International docents should be integrated. Capacity building is important with respect to education of technical scientific staff, and also standards must be set so that there will be a common language based on common methods. And of course, I think the third point is the basic point. So the conventional soil analysis is good, but it must be overcome by classical remote sensing, and particularly by the hyperspectral analysis. And such can be, for example, developed as the polygons that I was talking previously about. And I'm very much convinced that such a network center of soil laboratories, of excellence in soil science, will pay off in an economical way. Because if you know your soil better, you can work with the soil with less input, you can gain carbon, you can gain money with the carbon gain, and you have a more secure yield if you work well with your soil, and likely also a higher yield. So with this, I think that's economically very relevant. And it helps also in avoiding detrimental impacts of soil degradation. We might also think about soil rehabilitation. And finally, what I will have emphasized already, I think there are also good opportunities for carbon trading. For example, if I learned this morning that now the former seabed of Sea Aral is planted. The plants are producing organic matter in the plants themselves, but of course in the soil. And this is a carbon which has not been in the soil before, which is CO2 that has been fixed before. So I also see with this respect quite a relevance. And Sledoshi slide. And this is just an example from Germany also about some innovative agricultural methods using biology, in this case, intermediate crops, to improve the soil health, to sequester carbon, which we can measure, and even also to increase the yield. Rahmat.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Guggenberger, for this very inspiring presentation, these outlooks and interesting ideas for possible future funding measures, maybe. Yeah, you saw on one slide, this was the former ambassador of Kazakhstan in front of the laboratory, Mr. Klinner. He's already here, now the ambassador of Uzbekistan, but we are still waiting for the soil laboratory. Thank you very much. Interesting ideas. And now I would like to move on to the last presentation of Dr. Mr. Edelstein.
Thank you very much, dear distinguished colleagues. I am professor of environmental psychology at Ramapo College of New Jersey. My work addresses how people are affected by environmental disaster. I've spent my entire career as part of an interdisciplinary group trying to build a sustainable world. I first became directly involved with the RLC in 2011 as the result of a project I developed called the RLC, a dry run for climate change. That supported a field investigation by a team of 12 Americans and Uzbek experts. This project led to the publication of the volume Disaster by Design, the RLC and its Lessons for Sustainability, a collaboration between Uzbek and American scientists. Like this event today, it was an important exercise in mutual learning across nations, disciplines, and practices. I have several points I wish to make today regarding the future of the Aral Kum. First, both the scale of the Aral disaster and its status as the first such global climate disaster provide an opportunity to create a global model for reclamation through restoration of the region as an ecologically viable and productive landscape, featuring water retention, soil enrichment and stability, climate moderation, and other features of recovery, along with possibilities for habitability, livelihood, and quality lives for its inhabitants. The sea will not return, but a living ecosystem will. This potential was clearly recognized in the UN resolution regarding the Uzbek Aral Zone of Innovation, setting forth a vision which I very much share. And now the challenge is to give this resolution substance by capturing the opportunity it represents and making the Aral recovery happen. Over my career, I have witnessed zones of ecological disaster that were converted into opportunity zones, as we are doing here. It has always struck me how it is possible to create new possibilities from disaster, even when the disaster has overridden nature's own ability to heal. The UN resolution, in combination with the excellent recent work on the Aral Sea and efforts generally by Uzbekistan to restore the Aral region and the life and health of its inhabitants, create a positive momentum important for attracting involvement and support for the initiative and achieving its objectives. Innovation is a way to concentrate our learning capabilities around ecological and social recovery, to make dead zones into living ones, to address contamination in order to create safety, and to put lost lands back into productive utility, supporting a healthy climate and human society. Several sequential tasks come to mind for advancing this process of innovation. The first, I suggest the creation of a team of international experts that for the moment I will call the RLC think tank, in order to create and guide the learning process essential to arrow restoration. Second, one of the first tasks of the think tank will be to create and run the RLC Recovery Challenge and Competition, an international design and implementation competition modeled after major architectural design competitions. This step will create excitement, drawing the best global minds in permaculture, ecology, and many other fields to our challenge. Note that traditional and ancient knowledge of the region, what I call the lessons of the Sardoba, will be integrated here as well. The third task, the Arrow region will be divided into multiple comparable experimental reclamation zones in order to promote diverse action research approaches. This will allow for multiple competition winners to be selected and for their demonstrations to occur in parallel. Fourth, specifically by dividing the Arrowcombe into zones, each with a different group of innovators in charge of design and implementation, different approaches to establishing a sustainable permaculture can be undertaken. Each team will stabilize the existing sand, establish plant communities, develop soil, as we were just hearing about, and create ecosystems that hold moisture, moderate the microclimate, and support increased diversity of life. Successfully recovered locations can then be linked to eventually create recovered microregions. The techniques that work best will be replicated in other areas. Failures will be studied and the learning applied. This approach will allow for surprisingly rapid success. Before long, the Arrow will be neither a sea nor a desert, but rather an evolving zone of ecological integrity, the world's dry run for reclamation and recovery. Fifth, it also must be a zone of social and economic recovery. The goal is to train and employ local people in every step of the ecological restoration so as to build capacity, provide livelihoods, and engage people in the restoration of their own region, inspiring hope for a better future, improving their habitability, the climate, and to use local knowledge and expertise, making local people collaborators and eventually master stewards of a restored region. Sixth, I recall lecturing about the RLC in some of Tashkent's best universities, only to discover that the students there knew as little about the RLC disaster as my students in New Jersey. This gap will be addressed. Uzbek people from across the nation will be informed and engaged actively in the Arrow restoration as an action of national pride and service. Young people will have the opportunity to intern in the efforts or perhaps to join an Arrow restoration corps. Students and professionals will have the opportunity to advance into careers related to the Arrow innovation effort. 7, importantly, people will learn that the Arrow disaster is not just in the far west. Problems of salinization and waterlogging and polluted water sources affect wide areas of Uzbekistan and Central Asia. The continued change to sustainable agricultural practices and development of alternative clean water sources nationwide will be a further task. 8, the Arrow think tank will undertake an active program of evaluation and assessment of projects, accumulating learning from these action research efforts so as to inform the continually evolving effort to restore the Arrow, further guiding the international involvement and investment needed to implement this Arrow innovation. 9, the tragedy of the Arrow Sea is being repeated worldwide through the confluence of climate change, unsustainable agricultural practices, and other water diversions and misuse. The result is desiccated water bodies and desertification, food insecurity, contamination, and the potential for conflict. The success of our initiative for the Aral will have benefits for the entire world. Accumulating knowledge from the Aral Sea will inform theory and practice worldwide for addressing climate impact. People from other desiccated and desertified regions will come to the Aral to learn skills that can be applied in their home environments. The focus will be to help them monitor and intervene in a timely fashion to prevent the total ecosystem collapse that occurred with the Aral, as well as the reclamation of lost systems. By extension of the Uzbek effort, a global climate corps can be created that employs and educates young people and gives them a role in a global economy increasingly dependent on environmental restoration and stewardship rather than extraction and production. Uzbek consulates and embassies will help host countries address their own problems as extension centers of Aral innovation. And the final task is local people everywhere learn how the Aral Sea was pushed past its tipping point. They will become engaged in stopping total ecological collapse from occurring in their own homes, as well as engaging in restoration efforts for diverse climate crises, establishing ecological integrity, renewed habitability, and new livelihoods engaged in environmental stewardship and restoration. Instead of being forced to become refugees, as their regions regain sustainability, people will achieve environmental and social sustainability themselves. In sum, new opportunities arise from disaster if we make them happen. It is now in our hands to achieve these new potentials. The Aral has been an unfortunately apt dry run for climate change. The task of our innovative efforts is now to make it a dry run for climate recovery. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Edelstein, for your ideas, your presentation. It was very interesting. So now I would hand you over first to Mr. Heinz, and then you have the chance for questions and to our speakers.
Oh, okay, thank you very much. When do we have to finish the session? Okay, I will be short. So first of all, I would like to thank CASIB and Mr. Liebert for not just hosting the session, but organizing the sessions, and thanks for your, in particular for your patience to work with our ministry. The project and the idea of CASIB is one of the lighthouses of the German-Uzbek cooperation, and I hope that we can arrange this co-funding for Climate 3 by the Ministry of Innovative Development, that you can establish your branch at the RLC Innovation Center, that you can join the work on the laboratories which will be established there together with the center and the university and the institute. And you're opening a lot of more ideas. There's much more potential. If I remember the work, the connections between TMA and the German Kazakh University, there is a huge potential to increase the cooperation between Germany and Uzbekistan. With two other lighthouses of the German-Uzbek cooperation, is the German-Uzbek tender. We together implemented a modern style and well-done, transparent in competition, made a call for scientific proposals. And we all were astonished that we really were on the same level in organizing and in evaluating the projects. The third project is the new university, New Uzbekistan, which is where the Technical University of Munich is big player to establish this university. And fourth project, this is together with the GIZ, we are just promoting innovation centers in Uzbekistan, and we want to share the experience of German innovation centers for our Uzbek colleagues here. And last but not least, the fifth one is, of course, the academic exchange programs by the DAAD. So I'm very glad that the Federal Ministry of Education and Research of the Federal Government of Germany and the Eastern Committee of the German Industry they are ready to participate in the InnoWeek 2002 and make Germany a partner country for this InnoWeek. And I'm quite sure that all these highlights of the bilateral cooperation will be presented there as well. In advance, thanks to the Federal Ministry of Education, thanks for the huge support for the German-Uzbek cooperation, and to the German industry, special thanks. They might share their experiences for the growth of innovation culture in Uzbekistan. Concerning the central, the RLC region, it's all about salt, soil, and water. Being here for 3 years, I just will a little bit provoke you all. I have the impression that we are trying to heal a patient by his without asking what is really, where does his sickness comes from. We are just healing this or that, but we are nobody else. The head of committee of this RLC region of the Oli Majlis, Mr. Alikhanov, today, it's complete, perfect way to describe the situation: degradation of soil, lack of water, the appearance of salt, and so on. And he said, maybe we are guilty. So the question now is, maybe we are guilty, but how we do have to change the situation? Of course, the climate change has a certain effect on the situation now. But imagine, please, if we would have the year 1960 nowadays, we would have the complete RLC, and if we would go further, another 30 years, without changing anything, what would be the result? Same thing, lack of water, and the water of the RLC would disappear once again. So there is something behind it. We have, in fact, for the future, we have to be with innovations, we have to double the speed of the growth of population, compared to the growth of population, and comparing to the climate change effects here in Uzbekistan and in Kazakhstan as well. So, and what is the solution? It's not just scientific project, because you are healing the patient. We are not asking for the reason of the sickness. And what we need is a dramatic increase of education of young people in order to give them a chance to get good jobs out of agricultural area, wherever. And we have to have a reasonable growth of population. Every year, 500,000 young people join the job market here. If you compare the figure of the population in 2045, it was 8 million. In 1980, it was 20 million. Nowadays, we already have 35 million people living here, and this country has to feed all the people. In 2030, it will be already 40 million people. So we have to increase the innovation speed here dramatically, and we have to increase the education of young people in order to give them a chance to get good jobs instead of exploiting the soil and the water and having instead just salt. Please think about that as well. This will be a very important contribution as well if you, with your projects, will emphasize this aspect as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for these words. Mr. Carsten Heinz, high-level advisor of the Minister for Innovative Development in Uzbekistan. Now you have the possibility to ask questions.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good afternoon, dear participants. My name is Aziz Rasulov. I'm from Tashkent. Really interesting to hear about the Saxon Line and project. I think it's a really value-added opportunity project to implement in Uzbekistan. I have one question to Mr. from the company Saxon Line from Germany. Any let's say the project, can we really get more about the project? If you can share some more information, because I think there's a really good opportunity for value-added cost beneficiary projects like these in Uzbekistan, because in the area, in the disaster area, like in Karakal, Pakistan. So, and we would like to learn more about the lessons you have probably in other countries and in other regions with the environmental disaster area, like salinity, land degradations. And this is quite interesting for us. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rasulov, for your question. As I mentioned, the project has just started in July. So in the last couple of months, we have been working on the cooperation with Uzbekistan, with Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan. And we are, well, lucky to have the support of the Ministry of Innovation in Uzbekistan and Tashkent and in Karakalpak. So we will be able to start in Uzbekistan our project in the upcoming year with field trials and productive planting and the extraction of fiber. Unfortunately, I haven't quite caught your question in the question. So if you need more information on the project, I'd be lucky and happy to give you some information about it in written. But what was the question again?
Sorry, yeah, sorry, yeah. As I understood, you are going to implement this project is not as I mean from this year, right? So
Yes.
So you probably the question was, I was not sure about the time when you started. Now it's clear for me that you are going to set up this project from this year and continue. So I just want to get more information about the indicators for the project. If it's open source data, if you could just share with us, or with me at least. So because
maybe you could just give me your contact details in the
Yes.
chat room, your email address, and I will send you some information and we can increase the contact.
Okay, thank you. Will do.
Okay, are there any further questions? Okay, if not,
you presented a large number of project interventions already in this previous generation cycle, so I'm not familiar with all of them. So my question is a simple one. There's no alternative motivation for it. But presumably you faced a lot of challenges in implementing these different value chain interventions for different agricultural or sustainable agriculture models. What would you say are the most important lessons that you've learned with those options that haven't succeeded in terms of promoting these new, more successful, climate smart or more climate resilient agricultural business models? Because it's nice to hear about the successes, but I'd like to hear more about what were the challenges that were faced that these highlight. And that's a question to anyone, any of the presenters. Or I'm happy
maybe
to
I will ask the members of our projects, maybe Professor Guggenberger.
Actually, there are not so many challenges, interestingly. So sometimes people were complaining about customs bringing equipment in or samples out, in our case, Kazakhstan, but it worked well. You need to know how it works. You need to be open. You need to respect your colleagues. You need to respect the administration of the country. And I can't complain about much. Now, sometimes, of course, let's say if you talk to the colleagues, they have a little bit of different attitude than let's say we in the West, but I don't find it really a problem. And what I really have to admire, at least in our case, is to deal with the stakeholders, because they're really interested. And also the farmers in northern Kazakhstan, they're really well educated, so they know what they talk about. And quite in many cases, it's rather a lack of money. Now, might be this is the point: a lack of money, a lack of finances, so that the stakeholders can really also implement everything. Quite often they know we are doing, let's say, a not sustainable soil management, but we simply have no money to change it. No? We know how to improve, no? but quite often there is not money available. I know in Russia it was the same 10 years ago, but this has changed. Now for example, in Russia, there is a good opportunity to get credits, because Russia investigated that sustainable agriculture, carbon-saving agriculture is a business, is a market. So, and there the state is funding their farmers. And I think if this financial barrier once will be overcome, I see good progress also in the Central Asian countries. Oh?
Yes. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
What about from the private sector, the Vocational company? You've done several projects with value chain interventions. What would you say? I mean, presumably you did a pre-feasibility assessment with these individual companies to assess why you wanted to work with them. But what should we know going into it? If we want to say, okay, let's scale up these types of interventions. This is a model to proceed. What should we learn from you?
I think the comment from Professor Guggenheimer was quite interesting. Yeah. There's just, they're all people, we are all people, and the combination and the communication is still the same. If you're in Germany or you're in Uzbekistan or in Kazakhstan, you communicate, and that's the key factor. Once you communicate, you can solve pretty much every problem there is on the way. We found it quite interesting, just as Professor Guggenheimer said, the stakeholders, especially the business stakeholders, they have quite a high, how to say, they go into risk really, really fast. They take their own money, put it on the table, and they want to get things done. It's just they have like a lot of investors in the background that give them their money and they want things done. And in our position from Germany, a lot of times we just say, okay, just a little slower. Come on, let us have some data. Let us have some scientific value. Let us have some information on the topic before we go straight into risk. And sometimes that is quite challenging to find the right key aspect in between, to find the commitment, the cooperation in between. But as I said, once you have an open communication on the topic and you say, come on, let's just back off a little and let us see the data first. In that case, there is no challenge. You can solve pretty much everything.
Thank you. Okay, any more questions? Yeah, okay. Then I would like to thank you for coming, taking part in this conference, for your presentations. Yeah, I think for us it's very interesting to hear about it, also for the Vice Minister, people here to hear about our activities. And so thank you very much. And now we're waiting for the final meeting. We have still one meeting ahead. And so I would like to thank you and to say goodbye.
The bluff we will have without you.
Yes, thank you very much for having us. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Ja, danke, Peter.
Peter Rahman.
Manchmal kommt ja
Coffee break is good.
А мы обещали еще Глории, что мы встретимся с руководством.
Ну сейчас сначала еще не закончилось, поэтому сейчас 516